Hey, what's up guys? Today we'll be drawing Gyarados from Pokemon. In this short video tutorial, I'll be going over the step-by-step of how to create this Gyarados drawing from start to finish. Check out the video chapters in the description below to preview all the steps or to skip to the chapter that interests you. And if you already love what you see on this completed drawing, feel free to hit like and subscribe. Now let's take a look at the materials we'll need for this drawing. You're going to need a thick black marker, a thin black marker, a pencil, and some color pencils. The color I have here is a black for inside the mouth, and I have a blue for both the midtone and the shadow. The shadow I'll just be coloring heavier. I have an orange yellow for the body, okay, for both the midtone and the shadow. Again, I'll be coloring heavier for the shadows. And the red for the tongue and inside the mouth, okay? Alright, so I'll be speed drawing throughout the video, so feel free to draw along and pause the video whenever you like to catch up with me. Now before we start our drawing, let's take a look at a reference picture of Gyarados and find out what shapes and form we can use to create our drawing. So, again I'm going to use a circle for the face, draw my cross on the circle, and then Gyarados' body is really just a very, very big curve. Okay, so if I draw it on the side, it's a big S shape, and then curve to the front again with the head. Okay, and if we make that S curve thicker, we would have that body of Gyarados. Okay, and then from that point, we're going to give it a very long mouth. The mouth really is just like a big rectangle. Okay, and then we start adding the fins. So we have one fin right here, another one right here. You know, look where the fins are located on that curve, and just draw in the fins. Okay, detail on the head. It's a little bit more crazier. We got a big kind of trident shape here. Okay, and then the eyes right besides the trident. Some spikes on two sides, two big fins, one on the left, one on the right, and two whiskers and tongue. Okay, and we can put in like all these scales that breaks up the body into sections. Okay, and then drawing like the details on those scales. But really, it all begins with that big S shape. If you can get this big S shape correct on the basic form and shape, when you rough in the basic form and shape, you will be very good with the rest of the drawing. Alright, now next, let's take a look at lighting. Now lighting for this drawing, it's going to be from above. Okay, because we see that most of the underside are dark. And we have the highlight mainly on the top and the front a little bit. Now shading is a little bit different because unlike a lot of the previous drawings that we've done, which is doing like a cell shading kind of style, this shading, it's all gradient. Everything's not all gradient. This original drawing, like the artist is probably using watercolor, that's why everything's all gradient. So you won't see a very like cut out cell shaded form of shading. But that's okay, we'll replicate that during the coloring stage, okay? So now we have all the information we need for our drawing. Let's start with roughing in the basic shape and forms. So this is actually the most important stage of the drawing because I consider it to be the foundation of everything else that will come after. Okay, so now you see how I draw very lightly at this stage? It is because I'm trying to avoid committing to any lines too soon. So when I start refining the drawing, and I might even change up some of these rough shapes, okay, when I refine it. And then when I find that accurate line, like, oh, this is where it needs to be, this is accurate when I compare to the official reference picture, you know, I will draw heavier. And slowly, the rougher lines that you draw in will fade away. And the correct lines will emerge from the basic shapes and forms, okay? Another tip when drawing circular shapes is I like to draw the four corners first. Let's just say I'm roughing in like the circle shape for the head. I will draw the four corners, kind of like four anchors. Like, this is where I want to be. This is where the top is, where the bottom is, where the left and the right is. And then I would draw in the other four corners to decide how round I want my circle to be. And then the last step is to connect all those lines. Okay, so this technique will give you more control of your shape. Okay, so give it a try. Now, if you're not happy with what you have right now, keep working on it until you do. Make sure the anatomy, the compositions are good. Now, we're learning from the reference picture, okay? You want to learn how to draw Gyarados correctly before you, like, go crazy with your own version or your own design. So, reference back to the reference picture, and if you think this is ready to go, let's start refining the drawing and adding more details, okay? See how the rough sketch feels like it's faded away now that we have a more refined pencil drawing? You have to learn to draw with short and repetitive strokes. Now, still draw very lightly, but look for that definitive line amongst the rough lines and draw heavier as you commit to the definitive line. And this is how you will see the real drawing emerge from your rough sketch. Okay, so we've made a long way from the basic shapes and forms, but I still feel like the lines are still not refined enough. That's why I didn't put a lot of the smaller, finer detail in there. Okay, like little scales, okay, and like the teeth, the eyeballs, you know, I still haven't put those in there yet. Because I feel like I can just do another pass of refining and really get those lines accurate, alright? So I'm actually going to grab my eraser and go over all the lines to make them lighter so that I can draw over it again and refine even further more. Now when I erase, the drawing is going to be very muddy, okay, because you're smearing all the lead or the charcoal and the pencil all over the paper. But in the meantime, also lighten up those pencil lines so you can refine furthermore, okay? So don't freak out, it's alright. So you're going to see me erase and you're going to see me refine again, okay? Okay, see how through the second pass I was able to get all the details in there and all the lines where I want them to be, okay? So I know the drawing looks very muddy. That's alright, after we trace it with marker and erase the pencil line, it's going to look very clean. Okay, so next step is to trace with the marker, okay? Now pay attention to the areas where forms overlap, okay? For example, if you look at our reference drawing, it may look like it's just like a big snake shape, but actually each section is on top of another section. So this section is on top of this section, on top of this section, on top of this section, okay? So it's like these cylinder shapes overlapping each other almost. Keep that in mind when you trace. Another thing is, when you trace, feel free to rotate the paper to help you to get more smoother lines, okay? Remember that you don't have to finish a very long stroke with one single line. You can always connect, break up one line with smaller lines, just connect them to make it look like, to make it look continuous, okay? To show you an example, let's say this line for the mouth, okay? So we go. One curve, 2, 3, 4. And I can continue all the way around and it will still look like one continuous line, okay? So don't try to make it in one take. Most likely you will be off and your line will just not look good. Alright, so let's start tracing. See how clean it is after I erase the muddy pencil drawing? Okay, so when you erase, make sure that you hold down the paper with one hand and erase with the other. Don't just erase like that, okay? So the paper will like wrinkle up, or you're gonna have like crease all over your paper if you just do that. Hold down the paper and then erase, okay? Right here, erase like that. So next step is coloring. Now most objects you draw will have highlight, midtone, and shadow. Okay, now on white paper we can overlay colors to make it look darker, but we can't overlay colors to make it lighter. So what I'm going to do is locate and mark all the highlight areas and then color everything else with the midtone. So that afterwards I can overlay a shadow on the midtones. Okay, so for the highlights, a lot of times I will leave it white. It makes the highlights more noticeable and your form will look more dimensional. If I do color in the highlights areas, it will be last, and it's usually a light layer of the midtone color. Okay, so we see some highlights, all the highlight areas on the reference picture. You got highlights here, 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 which pretty much overall everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna mark off those areas and coloring the rest with midtone. Okay, now when you color, try to color in the direction of the form instead of drawing just random directions. Okay, so let me see, if I grab my blue right here, and let's just say I'm coloring in the tail right here. Okay, don't just start random direction like this. Okay, so follow the form. See, I'm following the form of the tail. That's how you should color. Okay, so I'm going to start with either the lightest area or the smallest area. So I'm probably going to start with like the tongue and the eyes, okay, because they're like the smallest area. And then I will probably do the yellow and the last of them. Okay, let's start. Okay, it's because that this reference picture has so much highlight, which is the area that's left white already. So even though we just put in the midtone, the drawing already feels dimensional. So from this drawing, you understand how powerful highlight can be if you have it in the right place. Okay, so now let's take a look at the shadow. Now, in this reference picture here, we do see a little bit of cast shadow here and there. For example, you know, there's a little cast shadow here, a little cast shadow here. It's from the big pieces of scale. Okay, we got a little cast shadow here, but most of it is form shadow. And the way this is rendered, it's not in the cell shading kind of style, which I like a hard, straight edge line. Everything is like gradient. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab a darker purple and start hitting the highlight area. I mean, start hitting the shadow area, like the dark area, like right here, right here, right here, right here. Like I'm just going to start hitting the dark areas one by one. And I'm not going to create like any sharp edges for the shape of the shadow. I'm just going to do it like this is rendered. Everything will be like very gradual. Okay, so now I know with highlights this already looks dimensional, but watch this after I put in the shadows. Okay. See how after we put in the shadow, the whole drawing has a complete dimensional feeling? Okay, it's because with a combination of highlight, midtone, and shadow, everything will read as 3D form instead of a flat 2D shape. Now I know it looks awesome already, but we're going to make it look even better by making the profile lines thicker. Now the profile lines are the outermost border lines of each major shape. For example, the head, the body, the fin. Okay, detail lines like these patterns on the body, or the teeth, the eyes, those were not, usually those were not profile lines. Okay, so by making the profile lines thicker, your whole character will pop off the page, and it'll give. And there we have it, Gyarados from Pokemon. I hope you guys enjoyed this drawing tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what we should draw next. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Now remember, drawing is like playing a piano. You can have the best instructor and the best music sheet in front of you. You might even know the music very well, but it is only through practice that you will get better and become what you want to be. The whole point of my videos is to provide a side-by-side training for you on a daily basis. Like riding a bicycle. I might have to hold your bike for you in the beginning, but just keep drawing, and before you know it, you'll be flying.